Psycho murderer, revenge-seeking sociopath, opportunistic coward, deadbeat dad. All these are accurate descriptions of Peter Hale. But one thing you've got to say for the old wolf, he was smart enough to cheat death. Back in season 1, Peter knew as he got closer to a direct confrontation with Kate Argent that his chances of dying in the effort went up exponentially. But he had a plan, and a backup plan. Somehow knowing that Lydia was a banshee, Peter bit her and connected to her great big banshee brains. This spiritual connection or transference allowed Peter to instruct Lydia to bring him back via an increasingly creepy series of hallucinations and nightmares. He basically detailed the whole thing for her. Step 1. Dig up the Hale house floorboards to expose Peter's corpse. Step 2. Poison Scott and the other people at her birthday party with hallucination-inducing wolfsbane. Step 3. With those meddling kids out of the way, drug Derek with wolfsbane powder and drag him to Hale house. Step 4. Redecorate Hale house with every mirror at Pier 1. Step 5. Arrange those Pier 1 mirrors so that the light of the full worm moon shines down onto Peter's corpse. Step 6. Place Derek's arm within clawing distance. Apparently this combination of full moonlight and wolfsbane flowers with Derek's alpha spark and alpha level healing ability was enough to bring Peter back. He was pretty weak for a while after that, but soon enough Peter was back to the murderous so-and-so we all know and love. Hello there! I often get questions that I think are too obvious to warrant a whole video. Usually I just answer in the comments and have done with it. But sometimes I get the same very obvious question so often that I figure I must be wrong about just how very obvious it is. Thus is the case with this question about Lydia and Peter. A number of viewers have asked how Peter controlled Lydia in season 2. You couldn't see it, but I was doing little finger quotes on the word controlled. That's because I don't think he controlled her as much as he programmed her and then guided her to bring him back to life. If you're a regular passenger on these little trips back to Beacon Hills, please consider subscribing. It is free and all your friends are already here, so go on, click it. That's the way. Jeff Davis tells me he planned to bring Peter back long before they even filmed his death scene in the season 1 finale. They set everything in motion during the final 2 episodes of the first season. The mystery of why Lydia could take a bite from an alpha and not turn or die was the cliffhanger from season 1.
She's completely healed? No, not at all.
And the education of Miss Lydia Martin was pretty much designed as the B story for the whole of season 2.
I'm not crazy. I may be the girl who sleepwalks naked and writes backwards on the chalkboard, but at least I'm not one of those desperate Viking-popping wrist cutters at school.
The two are inexorably linked because Peter never planned for the bite to turn or kill Lydia. He wanted her not only alive, but fully awake in her abilities so she could carry out his backup in case he died during the big final confrontation with the Hunters, which he did. It's usually at this point that some people want to know how Peter knew that Lydia was a banshee. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that he didn't know for sure, but suspected due to the fact that Lydia's grandmother had been pretty loud about her involvement with the supernatural and pseudoscience. In case you haven't noticed, word spreads pretty fast and far in the supernatural world. I mean, word of Scott's defeat of Peter and his humiliation of Gerard Argent reached the Alpha Pack at near light speed. Cora heard there was a new Hale Alpha in Beacon Hills when she was all the way down in South America.
All those rumors I heard. powerful new alpha, one of the Hales, building a pack. Do you know how long I waited to hear something like that?
I'm almost positive that Grandma Martin throwing money around to study supernatural stuff would have been a talking point and a bit of a joke for actual supernaturals who heard about it. They would immediately think, yeah, well, she's a banshee, and they're all a little crazy at first. Or maybe Peter didn't know at all and was bluffing when he said he did. The resurrection plan and the method he used would probably work even if Lydia wasn't able to directly communicate across the death barrier. Okay, I got a little off track. Peter's plan hinged on just one thing: the fact that werewolves can create a direct connection to another person's brain and download tons of information. Most of the times we saw this ability, it was through their claws in the back of the neck. But any deep contact, even accidental contact, like we saw with Derek and Jackson in Magic Bullet, can transfer memory.
I've dreamt about this place. I remember the staircase. I remember these walls. I remember everything.
You've been here?
No, never. I dreamt it.
So when Peter chowed down on Lydia's midriff, he shared all the memories and plans he had regarding how to bring him back to life. It was a copy of him pretty much embedded in a series of instructions and delivered directly into her brain via a connection from his alpha spark to her nervous system. Again, this probably would have worked with anyone. It might not have been as clearly defined as it was with Lydia's banshee abilities, but any normal person would have found themselves driven to complete the task that Peter had implanted. The only reason I think Peter truly did sense Lydia had Harbinger of Death vibes is because any normal person he chose ran the risk of dying from the bite. For a professional survivor like Peter, that's too great a risk.
At least you know that you're not actually crazy. Personally, I think that you're going to pull through with a minimal amount of post-traumatic stress.
To recap, the bite carried all the information necessary to bring Peter back, including the when, the where, and the who. But the bite also sparked Lydia's banshee abilities, which led to her completely freaking the fuck out. Actually got a question a little while back as to why Lydia freaked out and ran naked into the woods. Look, I get scared in the shower when I have to close my eyes to wash my hair. If a hand came out of the drain, they'd find me 3 counties over and still running. So I have no problem understanding her motivation here. Plus, the writers needed to set up a mystery of who was killing people.
But if she's turning, would they actually kill her?
I don't know. They won't tell me anything, okay?
Lydia's run into the woods was supposed to remind us of Scott's waking up in the woods that one time in season 1. It misdirects us into thinking Lydia might be a werewolf after all. What's most interesting about this Banshee awakening is that way back in season 2, the writers really gave us the entire Banshee playlist that we would see again and again through the rest of the series. We saw the scream, the visual and auditory hallucinations,
Turn right onto Gaffner Boulevard and continue for half a mile.
You just made your 4th right. And 4 rights make a circle. Maybe the GPS would work better if it was on.
What?
the magnetic pull of dead bodies, and dreams that weren't really dreams.
Leave me alone.
Unfortunately, I can't.
Break the glass! Break the glass!
Now again, I think Peter's plan would have worked on a regular human due to that innate werewolf ability to transfer memory. But it was a much more vivid reaction with someone like Lydia, who actually exists with one foot just outside the land of the living. I have recently been made aware of a faction of the fandom that seems to believe that Scott's true alpha rise is something to do with Peter or the Hale alpha spark.
The alpha. I've always been the alpha!
Follow along. In this new religion, they cast Peter as the ultimate progenitor, and his spark is somehow special and is responsible for most of the miracles we see on the show.
For my family's power to be rightfully inherited by me.
First, to the myth of Peter, father of true alphas. Scott's alphabet was made in his body from the strength and purity of his soul. Any other alpha in the history of the world could have bitten Scott, and he would have still risen to alpha on his own because that part comes from inside him. The second part of that myth has Scott somehow being a Hale family member just because Peter bit him.
With my bite, the change your life. And my bite, that can end it.
That part's just dumb. Packs are mostly chosen families, and Scott rejected both Peter and Derek outright. Scott is not a Hale. The rest of the religion of Peter points to minor miracles that are harder to dispute, but are no less fallacious.
You think power like that was going to come out on its own? I'm the spark that lit your fire, sweetheart.
He did brutally attack Lydia and torture her psychologically to the point that her dormant banshee abilities rose to the surface. Peter did make a were-jaguar with the power of a demigod, but that wasn't down to Peter. It was all to do with the evil already living inside Kate. Just like Scott's soul was super good and made him a true alpha, Kate's was super twisted and made her into an evil cat creature. All Peter's godly feats are, in reality, simply the story of a desperate man who did not care who he hurt in order to get what he wanted. I should make this a series or a playlist or something. Things people misunderstand about Teen Wolf. A lot of people seem to believe this line from Peter has great weight and canonical force.
With my bite, the change your life. And my bite, that can end it.
I've actually been told by viewers repeatedly that this line means that Peter believes he is one of the only people who can take Scott's alpha spark away because Peter's bite made Scott in the first place.
And my bite, that can end it.
Yeah, that's not what that means. And I'm sorry to burst your big bubble of false canon, but that line is just a variation on a well-known joke. It's a really, really old and really, really overused joke.
And you're going to do it because I said so. I am your father. I brought you in this world, and I'll take you out.
When I say I brought you into this world, and I can take you out.
I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it.
I brought it into this world, and I can take it out.
Son, I brought you into this world. I think you know the rest.
That joke is so well known that it's been memed millions of times. Now, in the case of Teen Wolf, Peter is literally threatening to kill Scott.
With my bite, the change your life. And my bite, that can end it.
But this line doesn't mean that he has some extra special connection that will allow him to actually do it. It's really just a well-known parent-to-child line. Peter Hale was always a comic book baddie, manipulating his nephew into a mercy killing just to score a minor victory against his sister because he didn't like her management style. Then we have Peter's well-documented murder spree that started with the death of his niece and included almost driving his nephew crazy while Peter just sat there playing possum. He's a bad guy with an established pattern of villainy. The writers did a really good job of establishing that pattern. Peter is shown repeatedly manipulating and moving people like pieces around a chessboard in the pursuit of power. But no matter how many times he shows us he's a bad guy, I still get people saying, "But Peter loved his family." Yeah, he loved them, right up until they were in his way, at which time he disposed of them. He loved them so much that he did that season 4 Legion of Doom supervillain team-up with the woman who literally massacred his family. I believe this desire to create a positive narrative from irredeemable actions is one of the reasons why we have so many repeat cases of domestic violence. It's the "but he has a good heart" syndrome. And even if they recognize all Peter's actions as those of a true villain, some fans still cling to the fact that he helped out against the big bads in season 6, and that somehow means he is redeemed. Peter is the same level of bad at the end of the series as he was at the beginning. There's a lot to examine, but I think I can debunk this redemption narrative using only 3 key scenes. The first from radio silence. The power is out at Icon for the first time since Peter was locked up at the end of season 4. He escapes, but catches scent of his daughter, who is trapped and in desperate need of help. In this moment, Peter has the opportunity to do something heroic or even just decent. Instead, he decides to save his own skin to avoid a difficult situation. He leaves that building knowing that there's a good chance his daughter will die there. Okay, the second scene. Peter's escape through the portal where so many fans see the mirage of redemption.
Yeah, what about Malia?
No. His decision to escape comes not due to anything Styles said about saving his friends. It happens because Peter has just realized that he is not in a hopeless position.
This isn't a train station. This is a way station.
Prior to this moment, he thought he was inside the Wild Hunt, from which nothing ever escapes. But then he realizes this is just a way station. He actually has time. All the time it will take the writers to clean out Beacon Hills. Plenty of time to escape through the portal and get out of town. Unlike before, Peter now has a choice. Stay here and eventually get taken forever, or try his luck and maybe save his skin. He chooses to save his skin once he realizes that's an option. "But the keys," I hear you screaming. "He picked up Styles' keys so his friends would find him." In other words, Peter did the very least he could do to help. He bent over at the waist and lifted a few ounces of metal that just happened to be under his foot. Okay, you got me. Redemption complete. Yeah, no. Peter actually believes that Beacon Hills is a lost cause. But if there is a way to save the town, he knows that Scott's pack will figure it out. And if they're given the chance, they'll save the day. Peter is not dumb. He knows these heroes often win in impossible situations, and that would benefit him in case he can't get out of town in time. If you don't believe me, listen to Peter's assessment of the McCall pack.
Scott, I admit that you have a flair for beating the odds.
He thinks Scott might actually come up with something, which is why he bothers to lift those keys from the floor. But that doesn't make him less of a villain. Please, just listen to the voice of reason.
Remember who we're dealing with. Your father is a ruthless con man who always has a devious plan to hurt everyone around him.
Trust Mama McCall in all things. Anyway. This standing up to the Ghost Riders while Malia escapes happens twice, once in Heartless and again at the end of Blitzkrieg. People view this as love for his daughter, and they're probably right. Peter does love his daughter. I mean, Hitler doted on his niece and had a dog. A villain isn't defined by hating everybody. They're defined by viewing everybody as disposable. In this instance, Stiles is disposable to Peter. Malia is too, but she's more valuable to him than Stiles or the rest. But facing the Ghost Riders isn't the sacrifice you guys seem to think it is. I mean, he knows the worst that can happen is that he ends up back in the train station. And he knows that Scott is close to figuring out how to open that portal to save Stiles. He also knows that they'll save him rather than let him get taken forever because they're heroes and that's what they do. I mean, maybe the writers intended for him to look heroic, but he is literally in no danger in these moments. There's at least one more scene we need to look at. In the second half of season 6, he comes back after first claiming he won't help against the Hunters.
Hunters destroyed my perfect automobile.
I'm sorry for those who see heroics here, but this is actually Peter's most selfish act. There is literally nowhere in the world he can hide from this planetary kill-all werewolves brigade. So he has no choice but to stick with the one pack left in Beacon Hills. But there's this montage when Malia confronts him about his decision. She claims it's because he saw something in her head, and I agree with that, but for a very different reason than what the writers intended. I'm sure the writers wanted this collection of scenes to give the impression that Peter is helping the pack because Malia loves Scott, but that's not what I see here. What I see is Peter realizing it will be just as hard getting her away from Scott as it was getting her away from Stiles in the first part of the season. I see him realizing that he now has an automatic in with the most powerful alpha that Beacon Hills has seen since Talia Hale. He's not changing or growing as a person here. He wants to restore his family as a power base. It's what he's always wanted. In this case, that means keeping Malia close, and if her boyfriend happens to be the power player in Beacon Hills, all the better. Remember Peter's pattern of villainy: manipulate and move people like game pieces while seeking power. Nothing in Peter's season 6 arc breaks that pattern.